Hi, my name is Gina Porter, and I am the math specialist at Rock Prairie Elementary. And we are going to talk about second grade math and what they're doing during the second 9 weeks of the school year. Specifically, we're going to talk about how they are using data and creating graphs and thinking about the information that they find in graphs. So if you look at an overview of the second 9 weeks, at the beginning of this 9 weeks, they continued their work of using non-standard algorithms for addition and subtraction. They started that in the first 9 weeks and carried it over to this 9 weeks. Then they move into organizing and interpreting data before they do some work on telling time. And then they round out this 9 weeks by recognizing and representing fractions right before the winter holiday. So let's talk about using data. They need to be able to organize up to 4 categories of data and use it to create a bar graph or a pictograph. So for a second grader, they may create a question that they want to find out the answer to, and then they're going to take the responses they get and create a graph. So they write down the question, and then they go out and perhaps survey people, ask them the question, and record their responses. A lot of times when they're recording those responses, they're using tally marks. And when they finish surveying the people they're going to ask, they then can count up the number of tally marks they have and organize their information, get ready to make a bar graph. In first grade, they looked at bar type graphs. And in bar type graphs, it always has a scale of 1. The difference in second grade is now they can work with bar graphs that have a scale other than 1. Usually it's kept to pretty simple numbers, a scale of counting by 2 or 4 or perhaps 10. Never a scale of with an odd number, because then if it only goes halfway between 2 numbers, that would be a fraction. And so we stick to even whole numbers. They also create pictographs. And a pictograph is different than the picture graphs they did in first grade. When they did a picture graph in first grade, each picture always represented one piece of data. In second grade, when they create pictographs, each picture may have a value greater than 1. And again, it's usually 2, maybe 4, sometimes 10. So now they're having to use what they know about skip counting, which is also something they worked on in first grade. And they're going to take that data and they're going to start to create a graph. And they need to know that every graph should have a title. Just like every book has a title, we need to know what it's about. And we know that if it's a pictograph where the pictures have a value other than 1, that it must have a key so that we know how much each picture is worth. And sometimes on a pictograph, even if each item does stand for 1 piece of data, we still go ahead and add a key. The graphs, the pictographs or the bar graphs, can both be oriented horizontally or vertically, and the students need to be familiar with both orientations and be able to create graphs in either orientation. So here is a set of data that someone collected about favorite outdoor activities of some students. And so over here, we see where they organized the data, and we can see the categories. We can see the number of students who chose each category. And then they took that and they created a pictograph. And in this pictograph, each little starburst or star is equal to 2 students who responded to the survey. So we can see over here, 4 students said that tennis is their favorite outdoor activity. And so this symbol is for 2 students. And this one's also for 2 students. So a total of 4. 4 students chose tennis. We see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 students chose swimming, and so on. One of the most common errors with second graders in using pictographs is that they forget about the key. They either forget to look at it, or they look at it but they don't take it into account when they are looking at the graph and trying to interpret it. Quite often, students will look at this and say, oh, 2 students chose tennis, 5 students chose swimming, because they neglect to take into account the key. So that's something that you can have a talk with your students about. Here is a different graph. This one, they surveyed students about what after-school activities they participate in and created a bar graph. And this bar graph is oriented with horizontal bars. You can see that there's a line for every number, but they only labeled the even numbers. And so, like right here where the bar stops at this line, which is between 4 and 6, they have to think, well, 5 is between 4 and 6. So this line, this bar stops at 5. They also need to know that if they are creating a bar graph, they have to indicate the scale on one of the axes. And that they have to label the x-axis and the y-axis. Although we don't require the students to talk about the x-axis and the y-axis, we can talk about it and remind them that we have to label the scale to tell what it stands for, and we have to label the choices that the students had when they were responding to this survey. Let's back up to this one. In first grade, they did a lot of answering questions about very literal interpretations of the graph. How many students said they participate in piano lessons after school? How many more students say they do homework after school than students who say they do play in a baseball team after school? So those are very literal types of questions, where the information comes directly from the graph. In second grade, we want them to start looking at the graph as a whole and thinking not just about the specific number and how they can add or subtract or record that, but looking at the graph as a whole. What story do these numbers tell me? For instance, this graph about the number of different types of flowers in a basket of flowers, we can ask them to draw a conclusion, such as, why do you think there are more mums than other types of flowers in the basket? And that's a wide open question. There's many different answers that they could give for that. If you owned a flower shop, which flower would you have the least of in your shop based on the data that you see here? We also can give students a graph and ask them to write their own word problem. What word problem could you create that someone could use this graph to answer? And it could be a literal question, or it could be more of something where they are asking someone to draw a conclusion or to make a prediction based on what they're seeing from the graph. Well, thank you for watching. And again, my name is Gina Porter, and I'm the math specialist here. And if you have any questions about this topic or any others related to math that you would like to talk to me about or ask me about, you can contact me via email at jporter@csisd.org, or you can call the school and ask for me, and I will get back to you. There will be a Math for Parents training for the third 9 weeks of the school year, and that will occur here on campus on Thursday, January 5th. And I hope to see you there. Thanks again for watching.